right, it's game day. Rutgers men's basketball heading to College Park, Maryland to take on the Terrapins Tuesday night, 6:30 p.m. on BTN. A huge opportunity for Rutgers to build off of Saturday's win at Michigan. A 15-point come from behind second half performance in which Rutgers just dominated down the stretch. They outscored Michigan 20-4 in the final 9.5 minutes of that game. The Rutgers debut of Jeremiah Williams was a huge boost for this team. Steve Peichel adjusted rotations. He mixed it up defensively. Wanted to just kind of touch on a few more things from that win and then also preview this game tonight, Tuesday night at Maryland, a place that Rutgers has won 2 games in a row. 2 of the last 3 years, they've won back-to-back road games in Big Ten play. They have a chance to do it once again tonight. So, in terms of the comeback against Michigan, a big part of that was defensively. Steve Peichel mixing in a 1-3 zone, 1-3-1 zone that really was effective. I know that one big matchup tonight is Jameer Young, the point guard for Maryland, who's been fantastic. He's one of the best guards in the country, hands down, 6'1". How is Rutgers going to defend him? They had a similar issue with Michigan with Doug McDaniel, who obviously has not been playing on the road due to a academic issue, but is able to play at home. But a big part of that game, as good as I thought Rutgers did man-to-man, Jim Michael Davis has been really good with ball pressure. A big part of, I think, what Doug McDaniel's struggles were against Rutgers was just bad decisions. And part of that was defensive pressure, but part of that was just chucking up terrible shots. Contested threes, not in the flow of the offense. You very much saw both teams, when they were able to move the ball, they got much better looks at the basket. Rutgers, defensively, to the credit, the 1-3 zone really threw Michigan off. They were not able to adjust, and they really struggled down the stretch. Rutgers, on the other hand, Jeremiah Williams was able to get downhill. He was able to get, deep into the defense, even though he missed a few inside. It's his first game in a year and a half. He showed his effectiveness. He also was able to find Cliff a couple times in space for dunks. Derek Simpson was able to expose Michigan's defense by getting into that mid-range. And, when he's able to create space off the dribble with his crossover, he just gets into a shot a lot better. He's got better lift on the shot. He's shooting with more confidence, and that's what we saw. Credit to him against Michigan. 5 of 7 in the second half on the floor, 3 of 3 from the foul line. He hit a shot to cut the lead down to 6. 3 times Michigan extended the lead from 4 points back to 6 points. Twice Derek Simpson hit jumpers to get it back down to 4. And then ultimately he made that off the screen of Cliff. The high ball screen, was able to hit that contested 3 over Terrace Reed and get the foul, convert from the line, and Rutgers never looked back. So Derek Simpson's shot-making ability was huge in that game. Obviously, that's something that has been inconsistent for this team that they desperately need. Jeremiah Williams' presence, I think, helped Derek Simpson. But the two of them combined, they took control of the game in a way that if Rutgers can do that more often, they're going to win more games. And tonight is going to be really interesting. Maryland's a veteran team with Jameer Young, Donta Scott, who's their top 3-point shooter. On the outside, they have to be aware of where he is at all times. They cannot let him get open looks. And then Julian Reese, their big down low. So those 3 obviously are very experienced for Maryland. Kevin Willard's second season. They really struggled earlier in the season. Both teams are similar in terms of metrics. Maryland is better. They're 13-9 overall. They're 53rd in KenPom. They are 5-6 in Big Ten play. They had some really bad losses, a couple of bad losses to start the season. They lost on neutral floor to Davidson at UAB. They lost on the road at Indiana by double figures. They got blown out at Villanova, but they've lost at home to Purdue, lost at home to Michigan State, got swept by Michigan State, also lost on the road to Minnesota Northwestern. They have won 2 road Big Ten, this is at Maryland. So at home, they are, 2-1, 2-2. They are 3-2 in Big Ten play at home. In terms of efficiencies, similarly to Rutgers, they are much, much better defensively. Rutgers is number 3 nationally. Maryland is 6. Rutgers is 300th offensive efficiency. Maryland is 170th. In terms of Big Ten play, these are the 2 worst offensive teams in Big Ten play and the 2 best defensive teams in Big Ten play. Maryland is 1-13. Rutgers is 2-14. So it's a like for like type of game. Compound projects an 8-point win for Maryland. In terms of looking at these 2 teams head to head, what do they do well? How do they match up? Both teams are very good on the offensive glass. Both teams are not great at preventing the opponent on the offensive glass. Rutgers has been better of late. So that's going to be a huge part of this game. Which team can take advantage of second chance opportunities off the offensive glass? Rutgers destroyed Michigan in that regard, and really helped them win that game. So can they do it again on the road? In terms of turnovers, Rutgers is about average in terms of turnover rate offensively. Maryland is not great. Other than Jameer Young, they are turnover prone. Rutgers is the better defensive team in forcing turnovers, or top 20 nationally in terms of turnover rate. Maryland is 53rd. So Maryland can force turnovers. Obviously, protecting the ball is going to be really key in this game. But Rutgers has shown when they can turn teams over and they get out in transition. That was a big part of the Michigan game. Michigan, between their poor shot selection and turnovers, Rutgers was able to generate a lot of points in transition. That was huge. I don't know if they're going to be able to do the same thing with Maryland. Maryland doesn't make as many bad. I mean, the thing is, Michigan had a pretty good offense coming into it. They just got frustrated down the stretch. So Maryland, is not as efficient offensively. Can they get them into ISO? Can they get, them to play a little bit of hero ball? That will be key. Obviously limiting them to one-shot possessions. One thing in terms of, I think this team moving forward is in terms of the rotations and how Steve Peichel divvied it up. The starters played much more against Michigan. I think, a lot of people have been saying they hope the rotation shortens. I think a big part of that is Jeremiah Williams being in the fold now. That starting lineup, he went with a 3-guard mix with Jeremiah, Derek Simpson, and JaMychal Davis. And then also Mag and Cliff. You saw Hyatt come off the bench. He gave them decent minutes. Gavin had the 7th most minutes in that game. That was really a shortened rotation. Noah got a little bit of action. Austin Williams got a little bit. Wolf did not play at all. Agbole was his debut as well. I really like what he gave them. Got him 3 boards and limited action. He has tremendous size. He's a physical presence. He can defend the rim. His footwork is a little bit, he's raw. He's a raw player, but he brings them a physical presence when Cliff's not on the floor that they've needed. So I'm intrigued by this new rotation. We'll see how Peichel plays it tonight. But in terms of, what Maryland does defensively, Rutgers can't. They have to obviously take care of the ball, but they have to get into their offense earlier than they have at times. One part of their struggles, I think, in Big Ten play is that they don't get into their offense fast enough, and then they rush a bad shot. So they take sometimes, 8 to 10 seconds to get into their offense, and it's almost like they feel pressure to get a shot off. And then you're seeing, not many people touch the ball. So the sooner they can get into their offense, I think Jeremiah Williams helps with that. Ball reversals, side to side, move the defense around. Can they, Cliff was much more active against Michigan with the high ball screen. I loved what they did against Purdue in terms of screening, pen down screens for Gavin to get jump shots. Jeremiah and Derek have shown the ability in the Michigan game to generate looks, either to pull up at more mid-range or get to the rim. I think Jeremiah, he's an unselfish player. He had a high assist rate at Temple. He's going to be able to get into the defense to penetrate and to find open teammates. And I think it's really going to benefit Cliff to be able to roll off into open space. Mag benefited a little bit too. You saw, and in terms of transition, Hyatt got a couple layups. Everybody kind of just played with more confidence, went stronger to the rim. They were much better at finishing at the rim. They were 18 of 29 on dunks and layups, 62% against Michigan. That has to show up tonight. They need to finish at the rim. Obviously, they shot very poorly from 3 against Michigan. In terms of 3-point defense, Maryland does not defend the three particularly great. Opponents are shooting 33.9%. It's 191st. Rutgers, although is obviously just shooting 28% from the floor this year. In terms of Maryland's offense, they don't shoot three. They shoot a lot of threes, but they don't shoot them very well. 29%, they're 332. Rutgers is 350th. So, if one of the two teams has a breakout 3-point game, that's going to give them a huge edge. Having a 2 or 3 point, making 2 or 3 more 3-point baskets than the opposition in this game could be the difference. Maryland is really good in terms of getting to the foul line. That's a concern. They're 18th nationally in terms of free throw attempts compared to field goal attempts. Rutgers has to defend without fouling. Surely Maryland will get somewhat of a home whistle, but Rutgers has to be really good defensively with their footwork. They have to keep them in front of them. I really like that 1-3 zone against Michigan. It caused them problems. I think Maryland will recognize it better, but I want to see that mix, the press a little bit too. Steve Pikiell was really cooking just in terms of how he was keeping Michigan off balance. Kevin Willard's a good coach, whether you like him or not. I think Maryland will be better prepared for that than Michigan was, but something to watch for in this game. I also think just in terms of just shot selection, Rutgers can't afford to fall behind in this game. Like they did again against Michigan. You can't rely on a double-digit comeback time and time again. You have to get into your offense earlier. You have to get settled down. You have to generate high percentage shots earlier in the game. They've done a good job of adjusting in the second half. There's a stat out there with plus-minus margins in Big Ten play. Rutgers is one of the worst in the first half. I think they've been outscored minus 63, I think it was, in the first half. They're minus 7 in the second half. So they just can't afford to dig themselves in a hole, especially in a game where points are going to come at a premium. It's going to be a rock fight. This game is going to be in the low 60s. Who knows? Could be even lower. So Rutgers just has to remain poised, stick together. One thing that was much better in the Michigan game was their communication on the floor. They were much more connected. You saw them just, huddle up quite a bit, and they were engaged, and they played with confidence down the stretch. And listen, this game is absolutely an opportunity for them to win. Maryland has played better of late. They are, have been better offensively, but they're not a great offensive team. And Rutgers, has been when they're on the same page defensively. They're as good as, they're number 3 defensive efficiency in the country, once again in that top 5, top 10. And it's going to be a dogfight. And I think that, how Jeremiah Williams responds in his second game is going to be key. Again, he's not a knockdown shooter. They're going to have to make shots. Who's going to make shots for this team when they need it? Derek Simpson, can he put together back-to-back games? We've seen flashes of him. I loved the way he was, his shot selection was much better, I thought, in terms of, because it's not just that he's shooting mid-range, typically, in the modern game, you want to either get to the rim or shoot threes, right? But when he's able to generate space off the crossover and get wide open mid-range from the elbow or whatever inside the paint, that's a little different than him just settling, dribble, take a contested 18-foot jumper. He was much better in terms of generating an open look against Michigan. I don't know if it's going to be there against Maryland, so we can't force things. But the more they can share the basketball in this game, someone's going to have to step up. Can they get guys hitting threes, whether it's Gavin, whether it's Andre? If you have both those guys coming off the bench now, Noah didn't get a lot of time. Someone's going to have to hit some threes in this game for them. And Jamichael Davis brought them energy in the starting lineup. You have to imagine he's gonna at least start on Jameer Young, and that's why I think you're gonna, Jameer Young dominates possessions for Maryland. So how they defend him. So we know Steve Pikiell likes to send multiple defenders at their best player and take out their best player. Can they limit him tonight? That will be huge. Controlling Julian Reese inside will be big. Again, you can't let Dante Scott roam free. What is he shooting from 3 this year? He is shooting 36%. Jameer Young shooting almost 35%. Everybody else is shooting a pretty poor percentage for them. They also Jordan Geronimo. He's been around forever. The Indiana transfer. He's not a great shooter, but he's a good defender. So this is going to be a really hard-fought, tough game. And how Rutgers handles themselves early in the game, how they you have to limit runs, obviously, and in terms of just taking advantage of opportunities. It's going to be a really tough game, but this is a game if they can come out, play with purpose from the set, execute the game plan, and be connected on the floor. They're going to need a better bench play. I think in this game, the bench did not give them much at all. It shot a really low percentage against Michigan. So we'll see what happens, but I'm encouraged by how they came back against Michigan. Yes, Michigan's the last place team. Yes, Michigan collapses in second halves. That's kind of what they do. But you saw signs, and I think based on the new rotation, that gives hope that this team can be more competitive. They can, be more efficient on both ends of the floor on a more consistent basis. So huge game for them tonight, Maryland, 6:30, BTN. And I'll be back with my rapid reaction following the game. Did want to announce a new partnership I have with Night and Day Apparel. They do great Rutgers merch. Have a discount code if you use Scarlet Faithful on their site. You get a 10% discount on all merch. I'm going to have some branded merch coming out with them as well. So excited about that. And there's if you're ever looking for Rutgers stuff, I really like their selection and kind of the creative stuff they've been able to do over there. So check them out, Night and Day Apparel. And thanks so much for listening and watching the Scarlet Faithful podcast once again. And I'll be back after the game.